So I'll give you the simple formula, right? And we're looking at strategy planning, we're looking at anything. We always start with results. Do I like them or do I not? If my health is the weight where I want it to be, is too high or too low. Finances, do I have enough money? Do I need more? Right? Did we take the hill or not? There's a result. Did we win the game or did we lose the game? And then we say, in the analysis, we say, okay, so what were the behaviors? Because results all come from behaviors. And we say, okay, well, what behaviors led to these results? And that's where people make the mistake is we say, we identified the behaviors. Let's change the behavior. And so then we impose change. And leaders say, do this, because I know if you do this, then we'll get those results. That's the mistake. The real issue is, the real question to answer is what you do, which is saying, okay, well, hold on a second. Let's not try to change behavior because we know that leads to resistance. We don't like changing behavior. But if I were to ask a different question to say, okay, well, what belief drove this behavior in the first place? Because behavior is driven by belief. Instead saying, okay, so what must I have believed to have behaved this way? That's a harder question. And if you can affect as a leader and get people to tap into, like, why did I get up in the morning and burn harder? Why did I get up in the morning and push myself through all that stuff? Or why did I sleep in? What must I have believed? Why did I spend all the money? Why did I eat the Cheeto? Maybe I spent all the money because I think my clients are going to continue buying and I wasn't ready for this kind of market. And I just thought that that's how it was. I'm new to this. I came in the last couple of years. It was just great. So I didn't think I needed to save. Or why did I eat the Cheeto? Well, because I didn't think that one would make a difference. So, I didn't think that one, that soda or whatever it is that I'm trying to eat, whatever it is, I didn't think it was. Well, I wanted to sleep a little longer because I gave that workout. Well, there's other people, the pros that you work with, they have a strong belief. And I love that burn concept. It's going to be burned into my head. I'm going to be using it. Is there's something inside that's driving them, a belief system, a story, a narrative, a relationship. Maybe it's a chip on their shoulder. Because I know I tell people there's a difference between a spark and purpose. Sometimes I need a spark, and sometimes that spark might be negative, like to prove you wrong. I might be told I couldn't. I was told in college I shouldn't even be in college. And I should just quit. Well, now I go back and lecture at that same college. And I got a bachelor's degree.
I love that.
How you like that there, Mr. I'm not even going to say his name. But that's the chip on my shoulder. That's a spark, right? And that spark got me to do a lot of stuff. But it doesn't mean that that's my purpose. And I tell people, once you're driven by the spark, use the spark. But then move over to purpose as quickly as you can, because the spark will drain you of energy, but the purpose will refill you constantly.
You said something that I don't know if I've ever heard it said this way, but you referred to disconnecting from your confidence. Is that in your work, do you find is that typically subconscious? Is it your people are consciously doing it? That's a pretty powerful concept, to disconnect from your confidence.
Yeah, I think it's mostly subconscious. I think it's mostly the way, we've been raised. And there are different things that influence this, gender certainly being one of them. But for me, again, if I go back to confidence is about trusting ourselves, I believe we were all born with an internal value, worth, and trust within ourselves. I don't think you can believe in God and not believe that we all have purpose and that we all have value. And somewhere, through our upbringing, whether it be well-intentioned family and friends or bullies or exes or bosses or people on the playground, whatever the case may be, we're being told very often that we should be this or shouldn't be that, or this is and we begin to sort of navigate life by disconnecting from what we know, disconnecting from what we feel, disconnecting from what we believe. And that creates a tear in the trust that we have in ourselves. I think the good news is that confidence, if it is trust, is something that we can choose anytime we want. And like everything with practice, it gets easier and more innate. But yeah, I don't believe the trust that we have in ourselves is gone anywhere. I think it's our opportunity to reconnect with it.
Yep. What was it during the ups and the downs through your career that kept you believing in what you just said, which is what it was all about, was the relationships?
I think to me, it's really that ability to realize that obviously there's things you're chasing, there's things you want to be successful at individually. But when you play a sport like the game of football, where it's going to come down to intangibles of toughness and discipline and effort and really, that culture and that teamwork, people love to use that word. But what does that word really mean? To me, it means being vulnerable, learning how to trust each other, learning how to have patience for one another, and learning how to instill confidence in each other. And to me, when you find a team that all of a sudden it's like, wow, like we're starting to be patient with one another. We're being vulnerable to one another. Like guys are starting to share, guys are starting to be open about something they struggle with. They're willing to kind of give that to their teammates and trust their teammates with, hey, this is something I'm dealing with. And then, by the way, they're also like starting to kind of have confidence in one another and wanting to bring each other along. That feeling of a team culture starting to take over and having those little moments where you just find it in a game where you're down and you just through grit, determination, and your culture, you find a way to win the game. And then guys come back in and you don't see them take that for granted and they dig even deeper in. Like that's what fires me up. I mean, I love that more than I love a win. I love that more than I love any moment in sports is when I see people start to believe in themselves and to believe in each other. I think that's one of those feelings I've always chased. I've always loved. Doesn't matter what industry or what I do or what I'm involved in. I love to see people want to put their arms around each other and have that moment where they realize, man, you know what I'm in, the scenario I'm in, the situation I'm in, I believe in it and I believe in the people I'm doing it with. And to me, that's where a burn comes from, is that everybody has to bring their own individual feeling of desire and passion, but then they got to learn how to share it with the people they're doing it with. And they're having the chance to chase that championship with. And when they can do that and find that way to be together and have that burn, that passion, that belief that we all are going to be able to accomplish if we're on the same page, to me, that's one of the rarest things in sports. And it's what fires me up to play the game.
Jamie, I know for you, you focus so much on not only building your business, but building leaders around you and then helping people scale. Mm-hmm. For that individual who they haven't even started to believe in themselves yet, how important is the power of vision like you had once you flipped that switch to not just think small, like, oh, now I believe I can make it, but to believe that one day you'd be releasing a book called Happy and Strong, teaching people how to build businesses, how to build leaders, and how to scale. You had to have given yourself permission to think that big, not just permission to look in the mirror and get after it.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine, again, growing up in poverty, I had very small thinking. No one in my family's ever made any money or been successful at anything. And so coming into business, again, grateful I had vision stretchers around me, Ed Milet and other great leaders that would challenge my thinking constantly. And so I would sit down and create this vision for my life, or, for my family, or for my business, or for my income, or the person I wanted to become. And then when I would be, complete my goals or my vision, I would ask myself, is this enough to inspire others, the people that are following me? And then I would rewrite it. Sometimes I'd ask, if Ed was at my level in business, would this be his plan? Would this be? And then I would rewrite it, and I'd rewrite it until it was freaking scary for me, till it was like, oh my gosh, this is so big and so scary, but what if? Oh my gosh, this would be so amazing. Is it possible? Well, yeah, it's kind of possible because it's already kind of been done in a different way, but it's been done. So if they can do it, then I can do it too. I just got to figure out what they did and not make their mistakes and work harder and get there faster.
You may not be that smart. You may not have all the talent, but you can have a motor. You can outwork people. I mean, shoot, I got motor tattooed on my forearm because of that, so it's like, that's my mantra. It's like, I'm just going to keep showing up. Like water always finds a way through. And I've just tried to have that mentality. And there's so many things from the podcast and the businesses and this and that where, dude, all I knew to do was just to put in the work. And I think I don't really know any other way. And, and it's served me well. I'm grateful. I'm actually grateful for that part of my DNA.
You reference in the book, you don't call it the burn in the book, but it is referenced, throughout the book. It's referenced in how you show up How important has the burn been for you on your journey?
Oh, it's huge, and when I first heard the phrase the burn, you help take it deeper than just your why. We've had that conversation before. I know you talk about that a lot. And it took me a really long time. In fact, I spent, was it not even 5-6 months ago, we were in St. Louis together at your workshop, and I was still going, what is my burn? And I've come to realize, and it's in my code I read every day. Right up here, I write it down, but my fuel, I call it my fuel, because you got to turn it into your own, right? It's so.
Hey, I told you when you came to St. Louis for our coaches boot camp, that is research. You came on a research project.
Yeah, and so my burn, so to speak, is I am the underdog. Like that's where it is now, right? We had the conversation. I'm like, I think sometimes it changes, but if I really look back at the evidence in my life, and parents divorced when I was 6 months old. We had a bunch of turmoil and, everything from substance abuse to gambling to bankruptcies to, the whole broken home thing. I literally grew up on the other side of the tracks in our community. All my friends were rich, or so I thought, right? And, but when I just look back, it's like, I've just been showing up as the underdog this whole time. At least that's how I've seen myself. And it's, I think that's really what drives me. That's my burn, man, is, and I try to live my life like that, because I think that's also why I grind and I'm consistent and I do the things that need to be done, because I have that chip on my shoulder that I got something to prove. And, I don't want to be the typical Reber that generations have been. Who grew up and underachieved. So,
that right there. And, with the tremendous amount of experience and the massive coaching platform that you have built for those in the contracting space, how important is that piece right there, Tom? Right? Because so many of us, I think the self-talk is, and it comes out in different ways. Sometimes it could be, well, once you reach where your parents were, there's almost this guilt, right? Like, oh my gosh, like, is it okay to go past what my parents did? Mm-hmm. And then for other people, it's, well, that's not for me, right? I come from this family, or here's what my name was. And once again, it's the self-talk, it's the excuses. How important is it for people to establish discipline in order to silence self-talk?
Oh, it's huge, because you have two choices when you have the negative self-talk. You can bury yourself in the anxiety of it and go down the drain, so to speak, or you can take some positive action, right? And I just think the only way out of that negative spiral is to take positive action. I personally can't positive think my way out of my negative thoughts, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like when I start, this morning, I told you I didn't sleep well last night because of a couple of things right before we hit record here. And I got up and I'm like, I got to attack the day. I can't wallow in this. I got to move my body. I got to I got to follow my routine. I have to, dude, you talk about discipline. I've had, our podcast, we're going on, we have our main contractor fight podcast, and we had a sales training podcast, and combined we're closing in on 670, 700 episodes. And I remember when I first started the first episode, which we've left all the early ones up because they're horrible, and I want to give people hope. You can hear it in my voice. I was insecure. I didn't know what I was doing, and blah, blah, blah. And it was probably 100 or so episodes in where the light switch went on. And I'm like, I'm going to show up and be me. But you never get to that point where you find your groove and you find who you are if you don't keep going. And I had, and I love these guys to death. We've talked, we're all good, but I've had business partners of mine in our contracting companies, coaching companies, have been like, why do you keep doing all this content? Nobody's listening. Nobody's swiping credit cards. Nothing's happening yet. And I just kept going, trust me, I know what I'm doing. And honestly, Ben, it's all I knew to do.
Because America needs a locker room. Because in a locker room of a team that wins championships, you've been in teams that win championships. You've got national championship rings to show that teams that win championships, they have this space called a locker room. And in a locker room, your success is my success. In a locker room, the diversity is our strength. And in a locker room, the standard is the standard. No one is above the standard in a locker room of a team that wins championships. But also in a locker room, a mistake doesn't make you a mistake. There's not this cancel culture that you see. That cancel culture stuff you see in the real world, that's not in a locker room. In a locker room of a team that wins, a guy makes a mistake, they find a way to bring him in. They love on him more. They bring him back into the fold. But in America right now, we've lost our way, Ben. And it's like when we're going to write a book and tackle these tough subjects, we couldn't talk about racism without talking about the cancel culture. Because there's a difference between holding someone accountable and holding someone hostage. And right now in this country, people feel like they're being held hostage. I read a poll recently, Ben, before the book came out, said that like 82% of the people in America do not feel like they can say what's on their mind because for fear of the cancel culture. So Stephen and I wrote this book and we thought, man, you know what? Let's try to bring America together. And we'll use sports as the vehicle to do this because sports can do that. But before we publish it, here's a little known story. Before we published the book, before I sent it out to the publisher, I said, Stephen, we got to market test this thing. We don't want to write a book that talks about the cancel culture and get canceled in the process, right? So I sent the book out to 5 coaches that I know that are hardcore Trump guys. These guys wear their MAGA hats in practice, you know? Then I sent it out to 5 coaches that I know that are hardcore BLM type guys. These guys wear that on their sleeve. You know where these 10 men individually are on the political spectrum. Gave them the book, the manuscript, and I said, hey, listen, guys, give it to me in both barrels. Tell me what this book makes you feel right now where you are in the United States of America, but I need to know because I don't want to get canceled with this book. And all 10 of these guys, Ben, they come back individually and tell me, when is this book coming out? I got to have this book for my team. This is the conversation we need to be having. So we knew we threaded that needle, man, and that was when we ran with it. We went and published the book. It became a Wall Street Journal bestseller, and you know, we just hope more and more people read that book because it has the 2 ingredients in that book that I think everybody needs to have difficult conversations. It has humility and grace. And humility is when you're willing to listen to a tough truth and hear something you may not even know is true, but some other person that sees this and feels it tells you. Now you're listening to the other side. But grace is the other element because grace, man, grace always costs a person giving it more than it costs a person who receives it.
Right. Real estate got really sexy for a really long time. And it was easier to get your license and sell your mother's house and make a $28,000 commission on it, right? Than do what your day job was. But people don't realize when they get into this that this isn't a sprint. And that's what I tell new homeowners. I'm like, you ain't gonna make money overnight in this traditionally, right? This is a marathon. This is a marathon, and you got to be tenacious, you got to be gritty, you got to be focused, and you got to be dedicated. And on the mortgage side, I think something like 40% of the business is already gone. And this is the start. There's a local company in Denver here. They had about 1,000 employees. They're down to 100. So they're down 90%, 9-0, right? This is the toughest, this market. There's less volume. There's less transactions happening now than 2008. But either we're going to bet into it and rely on ourselves, or we're going to go away, right? And going away, like if you're with me, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you're not going away and you don't have that school of thought, because I've done that mentally before. I've quit. I've been to that place, you know, and it's easy to go off the rails and drink too much and pick up bad habits during times like this. And instead of doing that, which I have done in the past, I'm going to do the opposite thing, and I'm going to do the really hard thing. And I'm going to work my ass off and show up every day and be the most dedicated guy in town and the most caring guy in town and the most empathetic guy in town. And that's what's going to win.
Where I said to myself, and I don't even know how this thought came in, but I said to myself, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, but whatever I do with it, I want to revolutionize something. And that just, for whatever, the second I had that thought, it just always stuck with me. That, you know, there was a time where I actually in college, I wrote a young adult novel, and I wanted to take it and make a movie out of it, and majored in creative writing, even though I'm an accountant now. And then I got tired of being broke, and so I went back to school, and so I think if I'm looking at like doing things different, there aren't that many CPAs who got their degree in creative writing in English, and so, but with that, it kind of allowed me to find my way through a little bit of dabbling. I graduated college in 2008. So in the run up to that, every professor said, and of course it was, it was all the English and communications and all that professors said, it doesn't matter what degree you have, just that you have a degree to get a job. Then 08 happened, and that did not bear out to be true at all. So I kind of had to claw my way up, and so I just, for whatever reason, I just always wanted to revolutionize something. And then I kind of learned about the power of social media through grad school. One of my professors was known as like the social media professor. And I saw the way that it was like in 2010, 2011, right when Gary Vee was coming on the scene and all these people started really talking about social media. And I said to myself, this is somewhere where I want to go and I want to learn this because I think it could create a massive impact. In addition to revolutionizing things, I think if I'm looking at like what my burn is, I wrote down in grad school that my life's mission statement, I think it's stuck with me since then. My life's mission statement is to positively impact people in a way that so that when they encounter me, they're inspired to live a better version of their life for having encountered me. So basically to live in a way that inspires others to live a better life.
So yes, I did not get drafted. I thought I was going to get drafted. Like I said, like you were saying, coming out of Michigan State, 13-1, we win the Rose Bowl, we win the Big Ten championship, only team in Big Ten history to win every game by 10 or more points. I mean, we dominated the season. So everybody, myself, Max Bulla, we all think we're going to get drafted. And yeah, name doesn't get called. But what's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to become a pro. So why would I not focus on the 20 teams that were calling for me to be a preferred free agent, a high priority free agent? So that's what I had to do in real time. Okay, yes, I could sulk and be upset that I didn't hear my name called, or I can see that the opportunity is already here in terms of the 20 teams that are calling me right now. And that's what I had to do in real time. I had my dad there, my brother was there, and my mom was on the phone with me, and we were just making sure, like, hey, like, what's going on right now? Should we pay attention to the name not being called, or should we pay attention to who's calling? And that's what I did right there. But that kept a chip on my shoulder, and that made me choose Denver. The Detroit Lions offered me the most money, but I was like, if I can go play with Peyton Manning, right there, my man P Money, if I can go play with him, I can play in the NFL. And I needed to go learn. There was a gap there that I needed to learn, and I need to pick it up quick. And that's the reason why I chose Denver.
So over your left shoulder, you got a jersey signed by the great Peyton Manning. Over your right shoulder, you got something else that a lot of people dream of that never have the opportunity to hold. For those, y'all better know what we're talking about. But that Lombardi Trophy. So, number one, I would just say I hope everybody's paying attention to Benny's answer. We don't always get exactly what we want, but we do get to choose how we respond. So you responded with great intentionality to say, what's the best place for me? Where can I learn? Where can I go be a champion? And so not only did you become a pro, you became a champion. And I'm going to take you in a direction. I don't know if anybody's ever asked you this. I hope they did, because I intentionally had this question for a long time. I wanted to ask you, how many wide receivers can say they played with 3 Hall of Famers? So you got to catch the thing from Drew Brees. You got to catch the pigskin from Eli Manning. You got to catch it from Peyton Manning. How many guys can say they 3 Hall of Famers? It's incredible what you've done in your career. So here's the fun question. So I want you to answer 2 questions. The fun question, and then you just tell me what it was like to play with 3 Hall of Famers and what you learned. But the fun question is, who threw a better ball, Eli or Peyton? and then
Eli,
you
Eli,
get to tell me what you learned with 3 Hall of Famers.
Well, it's actually 4 Hall of Famers. I did play. I signed with the Patriots for 1 week during the 2018 season. So I did play with Tom Brady. I did not play in a game, but they traded for Josh Gordon that week. But Bill Belichick was one of my highlights of my career, even though I was only there for a week, is Bill Belichick signing me and being around Tom Brady. So I've played with and been around four of the best quarterbacks of all time. Peyton throws a more catchable, I would say, pass. The anticipation is there. Eli throws a better spiral. I don't know who's funnier. They're both funny, both great and incredible leaders, great and incredible dads, awesome teammates, best storytellers I've ever been around are the two Manning brothers. So they have a lot of fun. Obviously, people can see that on that Monday Night Football cast. But I've learned a lot from all of them. Peyton, the way you treat people in your preparation and your process, and the way he understood the game. I mean, what he did as a quarterback will never, ever be able to be done again in terms of his mind, pre-snap reads, audibles, and how you can adapt that and relate that to business is how are you adapting in real time? Or are you so stuck in your plans and stuck in your ways that you're not open to actual change? I think about one of the things that he always made the third string quarterback do is he made the third string quarterback every Monday watch the TV copy of the game to see what signals and code words were said on TV so that we could change them that week, but also use those same code words or signals to fool the defense. And we would have like a bozo call in terms of like, okay, we said this last week, they probably picked up on it, and then we'd run the double move off of it. But that's being ready. That's being adaptable. That's being prepared. That's being connected to your daily disciplines like you talk about all the time.
If we say that hydration is the bedrock of good health in America, and we say that sugar is the root of destruction of poor health in America, how magical is healthy hydration that tastes great without the sugar? There it is. But how do you build a great business, impact the health of the American consumer through this product Lemon Perfect? Well, there's something in the middle. That's your people. And I want our people to feel like they are on a trampoline of growth every day, every week, every month, every year, jumping higher, 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 higher. But they're the connective tissue between 1 and 2. And so if you ask me why I have to wake up every day, even in moments of incredible darkness, and there have been a lot, it's because I have no choice but to lead this thing to the victory circle. Ben, there's no choice. I don't even know what I would do if this doesn't work. I'll be on a street corner. That's the fact. And so we embrace that every single day.
Well, I'll tell you, it is working because it's in refrigerators like mine all across this country now. When I was out in California and Drew had us come by the gym, when he's training Joel Embiid and training all the guys, I mean, it's right in the Lemon Perfect refrigerator in multiple flavors. So, I mean, you've got it right in the gyms with NBA athletes competing at the highest possible level to people's homes. So it's across the board. And I know with your energy and your passion and your belief, you will not stop. You will see this to fruition and disrupt the market, which you're already doing.
There's a shocking statistic that more than 50% of the US adults live in back pain. And you might think that that's just because we're all just sitting down all day and we're just a bunch of lazy fat people. But that's not true. The truth is we have a lot of car accidents in the United States. And most of these go undiagnosed, where you might have a small herniated disc that goes in your mid-back, lower back, thoracic, lumbar spine. And over time, that injury manifests itself into consistent lower back pain. And when you think about, hey, are you willing to live for the next 10, 15, 20 years with back pain in exchange for a $3,000 settlement? You think that's an obnoxious thing, right? And I found that 97% of the cases of car accidents fall into this category, and no one wanted them. Every attorney, this is why I didn't want to be a trial attorney, every lawyer gets infatuated with those big 10, 20, $50 million cases. But before I became an attorney, I asked every single lawyer, how long did it take you to make your first $1 million? And every trial attorney told me it took 15, 20 years. And I just grown up too poor for too long to do that. And so I looked at the bigger picture and said, who's handling these 97% of cases that are happening? Who's really catering to the families that are in accidents that may not have legal representation or may not have access to a lawyer, especially someone that looks like me. I'm not an ivory tower suit and tie type of guy. I'm the guy that's going to be hanging out with you at a football game. I'm the guy that's hanging out at car shows. And so I built an entire business around catering to those people. And I just figured out how to digitize it through social media.